I'm Ben Smith.
I'm Max Tawney.
And this is Mixed Signals from Semaphore Media.
This week, as America gears up for the biggest media event of the year, this Super Bowl, we're talking to Laura Jones, the Chief Marketing Officer of grocery delivery service Instacart. We'll talk to her about the business of Super Bowl ads, how one gets made, and the value or not of celebrities in the biggest ads of the year.
Yeah, Laura actually has got as much on the line as anybody, as any gambler approaching the Super Bowl.
Yes, it's Mahomes and it's the Eagles and it's Laura. But we'll dig more into all of that right after the break. Ben, you and I, we are inundated with ads every single day, moment of the year. It pays for our business in a lot of cases, but there is one time of the year that people actually don't mind seeing them, and that's obviously the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, the big media story, the big media business story is, of course, Super Bowl advertising. And it's because it's honestly, it's in this moment of fragmentation, which is all we ever talk about, this one unfragmented central event. And so these companies that spend all their time, like as the last marketer we talked to, tracking down obscure influencers who are blowing up and trying to get in front of them, get their phones onto that as fast as they possibly can. This is like the last moment that isn't that. It's like we have a huge lead time. We're going to spend tens of millions of dollars, and we're going to present not something that's trying to micro-target you in your corner of the culture, but that's going to hit everybody. It's a very interesting challenge that is almost like forgotten in this day and age. It's a real throwback.
But haven't the incentives still kind of changed in the sense that all of these ads are meant to go viral, and that's like the best thing that can possibly happen is an ad has a life beyond the initially what's happening on TV.
Oh yeah, they release them early. They do waves and waves of social media stunts and pay lots of influencers to further distribute them. But there is still at the heart of it like a central moment. I mean, that's football. It's amazing. It has made the NFL and these teams this incredible business. They're probably the best. I mean, obviously the best business in media is sports these days.
Do you have a favorite Super Bowl ad?
I love watching them, but honestly, in the last couple of years, the one that has cut through for me are those Christian ones. He gets us. Because partly they're like going so far away. Every other advertiser right now running away from politics. And they're like, here is a MAGA guy wearing a hat and washing the feet of a trans sex worker. Jesus. And you're just like, I don't know. I always feel like those really cut through. What's your sort of historical favorite Super Bowl ad?
I love the classic Super Bowl ads. I'm a fan of the frogs on a log doing the Budweiser thing. I'm a fan of the dude saying, "What's up?"
What's up? What's up? Yo, who's that? Yo, pick up the phone. Hello? What's that? What's up?
Those are good ones. Classic.
You're a simple man. Simple taste.
Exactly.
I like the Budweiser ones too. Can't lie. This year's Budweiser one's pretty good.
What's this year's?
Oh, it's what's the comedian? Shane Gillis? Shane Gillis?
Oh, Shane Gillis. Yes,
it's Shane Gillis, like getting the other dads in the cul-de-sac to a party, and it is like, I mean, you just have to think through like the scale of focus grouping required to land. Like, we are exactly the right amount apologizing to conservatives without like prostrating ourselves or like doing anything kind of embarrassing and Mark Zuckerberg at the inauguration, because it's still funny and sort of politically ambiguous. But no, I watched through all of them. Actually, I liked the ad we're going to talk about, the Instacart ad, which is just like extremely goofy.
Yeah. Okay. So Ben, set up our guest for us. Who is Laura Jones? Why does Instacart matter this time in the Super Bowl?
Yeah, Laura is a kind of hotshot CMO. She was at Uber, now at Instacart, and managed to persuade her her colleagues to spend an enormous amount of money on this ad, which in some way actually is probably the hardest thing in the advertising business, is extracting this money from the CFO of your company. So we'll ask her about that.
Yes. Well, we've got Laura waiting for us, so why don't we bring her on and talk to her about that right now?
Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
I guess just to like sort of begin with where you're coming from, you are, I think of you at least as a kind of hotshot new model marketer, very business focused. You have an MBA from Stanford, worked for Uber, Instacart, these digital native companies. And I wonder, like, in that resume, in that career, is making a Super Bowl ad like still the dream?
think for me, the being a marketer was never the path I set out on. So I think Super Bowl is a dream for every marketer. And the more that I have become a marketer, the more it's become something I've aspired to. So in that way, I think it is a dream, but maybe not one that, I would have said when I was 20. But I think being here right now, it does feel like a dream come true.
So this being a media show, we're really interested in kind of understanding how the whole process behind this works. Because we see the end, us and millions of Americans, we see the end results, during the game. But I'm really curious how something like this starts, when it starts. Can you just literally walk us through how something like this comes together and what that process really looks like from the first moment?
So over the summer, we started to think about, okay, we need to get to a concept early, because since this is our first time, we can't just buy the media and trust that we'll come up with a great idea. We really need to have the inkling of a great idea and confidence that we will not just go to the Super Bowl and have it be, a decent ROI. We want to go and we want to win. Like, we don't want to do a Super Bowl ad unless we can believe we can do a great one, because part of the business case is premised on the fact that this isn't just, a CPM media buy, that there's also this huge halo of additional reach you get through earned media coverage, through social chatter. So,
this podcast is a huge piece of that.
Right. Here we are building social chatter. But, we had to really kind of over the summer ask ourselves, like, what story do we want to tell? Do we have a big enough idea? So we partnered up with Chiat, and they've been amazing. They're our agency, and started working on the concept of this idea that we're trying to put together. So then it's August, and the media spots are about to come on the market, and we're really focused on efficiency as a company. So we need to get the best media price possible to help our kind of ROI stories. So we want to be one of the first there by this very specific placement that we thought would be advantageous, and get in early so we can get a good deal. And so, the night before the spots came on the market, I call our CEO, and we'd obviously kind of talked about the business case for the Super Bowl, and we had kind of our CEO and CFO align that, okay, if we had a good enough idea, they agreed this could make business sense. So I call her and I kind of explaining the idea, but it was a little squishy, should we say. Like, in my own mind, I was like, this is going to be amazing. But, I think for her, she was like, this feels maybe less fully formed than I might want before, signing off on this giant investment. And I basically had to say, look, like, I will stake my Instacart career on the success of this spot. I am convinced that we now have the right ingredients to make something amazing. And I will personally promise that I will either get to an amazing concept or I will resell the media if I don't. And I committed that by Halloween, we would either have sold the media back on the secondary market, or we'd have a spot that we truly believe would be great. So that's how it all started,
And these things are selling for $8 million for 30 seconds now. Is that more or less what you paid, or like, what did you pay?
So the standard market rate this year was about $7. So for a 30-second spot, which is what we bought, the list price, if you will, is about $7 million plus a $7 million network commit. So you have to basically have $14 million. Okay, I'm going to spend, 7 of this on Fox throughout the rest of the year and 7 on the spot. We got a little discount on the spot because we were very, very early. So we got a slightly better price than that. But yeah, it's the single biggest media buy I've ever done. And it's the single biggest media buy that Instacart's ever done. So it was definitely one of those high stakes moments.
And you mentioned the ideal placement. Like, what is that?
So we did a lot of kind of analysis and thought through a lot of scenarios. So for us, we thought the ideal placement would be the first ad break in the second quarter in the B position. So that means that it's the second ad you'll see in the first ad break in the second quarter.
Okay, wait, how did you get there? How did you land in that specific slot?
So we wanted to make sure that we were early enough in the game that people were still watching, right? You don't want to be in one of those situations where one team is so far ahead that it's not interesting anymore. We also, didn't want people to be too deep into, their six pack, right? We want people to be fully alert, or at least partially alert, but we also wanted it to be kind of deep enough into the game that people are settled, they're tuned in. And we like the idea of kind of a B position because right after, you cut to commercial break, there might be a little like, grab the chips. What did you think of that play? Now we're zoned in on the ads and we only have a 30-second spot. So we really need like all 30 of those seconds of your attention to tell our story.
That's so fascinating to me that there's a consideration that by the end of the game that a significant portion of the viewers might no longer be able to remember the contents of the ad, that's really, really interesting.
And is there anybody internal at this point, like your CFO, Emily Reuter, Fiji, who I know your CEO, like you could have bought a lot of targeted advertising on people's phones with this. You could have had me every time I open any app seeing Instacart ads. And this is a totally different thing. I can't click on it. I'm not gonna, it's a very old fashioned kind of advertising actually. Like how do you persuade, Emily to like write a $14 million check in that context?
Yeah, this is a bet on demand generation, on saying I'm going to cultivate a new cohort of users and I'm going to go out there and this is, the broadest reach media you can buy. So I'm going to go speak to the largest possible audience. And among those folks, the expectation is that we will move certain people either who are unaware to become aware or people who might be aware and not considering it to reconsider and actually now be in a state where they might actually go and search for Instacart. And we can actually then look at that and see this hypothesis bear out. We can look at site visits, we can look at search terms and actually see, are we doing that? And part of the way we got to convincing Emily and convincing Fiji to support this buy was through rigorous measurement of other high-reach media buys. So we did, for example, an Olympic spot this summer, and we were able to look at both the brand and business metrics coming off that and see that we were actually successfully both creating demand and actually even moving top line in that period, which is, for television, you don't necessarily think, okay, someone's going to watch that ad and immediately in the next hour go and build a 20 item basket and check out. So certainly that's not the lion's share of the impact that you're going to have, but even seeing some of that in period impact is a great signal that we really are creating new demand.
Okay, so we've described it, we've talked about it. Why don't we play the ad? Can we pull that up?
Release the hounds.
Puppy monkey baby.
Oh yeah. I'm on a porch.
Groceries are here.
Thanks, babe. You get the milk?
Laura, what did I just watch?
Okay, so what you just watched is an epic journey of all your favorite mascots from the grocery aisles making an epic delivery to a family so that they can enjoy their mornings. And within that spot, 9 different brands are represented in the form of either their mascots or elements of their past Super Bowl commercials. And we're really trying to show the lengths to which Instacart will go to make this perfect delivery for you and your family.
So, okay, just to kind of take a step back here. So there's 9 different brands. I'm curious, though, about how that works from the standpoint of putting that ad together. So do you call up the CMOs at those companies and say, hey, we've got this idea for an ad? And then how does the money exchange work? Are they considered advertisers who are who are paying you guys to help kind of put this together? Can you explain how the money works in that situation as well?
Yeah, so we did not charge any brands for inclusion in this spot. They have this amazing IP, and we really wanted to tell an amazing story with that IP. And so the actual spot inclusion was something that was done as just a collaboration. Of course, we have an ads platform within our business. Advertisers pay to run different kinds of ads within our app, and even off-platform. We have off-platform data products. And so some of those brands that participated are advertisers and did choose to advertise on our platform.
So you're buying ads and selling ads at this point.
Yeah. So we're on both sides of the advertising ecosystem. And that's kind of what we loved about this concept is, first and foremost, it's a consumer ad, a story that's meant to really just bring joy, put a smile on people's face. But there's also kind of a B2B story here of Instacart was one of the first retail media networks out there. We brought ads into the product very early on to help really make the economics of our product viable. And this is kind of a manifestation of that. And because of these deep relationships that we do have with the CMOs, I was able to call them up and say, hey, would you want to do this? And I mean, to quote Kool-Aid Man, the answer was, oh, yeah. Like, they were into it.
I love that there's like an ad industry inside joke embedded in this thing.
So speaking of advertising, we should take a break and hear from our sponsor, and we'll be right back.
This week on our branded segment from Think with Google, I spoke to Google's VP of Marketing, Josh Spanier, about YouTube's tools for Super Bowl advertising. The Super Bowl's in a few days. Google is running an ad. What does it mean to be an advertiser in the Super Bowl in 2025?
The Super Bowl is a big deal. I'm excited for our commercial as Google as a marketer, and I will be going down to New Orleans to experience the game firsthand, which I'm really looking forward to.
Hardship posting for you.
That is obviously the main benefit. The Super Bowl is this very controversial place in American culture and marketing industry. For many, many years, as I've interviewed people to join my team, I've asked them to give me the pros and cons of running in the Super Bowl. Is it worth spending up to $10 million for a commercial versus redeploying those funds at a different time? The thing that brands have recognized is that at the Super Bowl, people are paying attention to the marketers. It's part of the story. Who makes the best ad? YouTube has something called Ad Blitz. You can go onto YouTube, search for Ad Blitz, and it's an aggregation of every single commercial in the Super Bowl. And interestingly, it used to be you unveiled your spot in the game. Now, nearly all advertisers put their ad into YouTube's Ad Blitz product days or even weeks before the event. You might generate 100 million views during the game. You might get 200 million views on YouTube because people who go there to check it out and see it from a worldwide audience. So as a marketer, the Super Bowl is this central moment, but you have to activate those moments as part of a continuous campaign, pre, during, and post, and actually through the whole year. And it leads into a series of other moments later on, be it March Madness and beyond.
And where can marketers go for more?
Head over to thinkwithgoogle.com. There's a plethora of articles about the Super Bowl, and you can sign up for YouTube's Ad Blitz links and also all the great content about the Super Bowl this year.
Thanks, Josh.
It's really interesting to me. I was struck by, the fact that it felt like, okay, we're throwing together all these different references and characters, from different places. And it's kind of like hard to tell initially, what the actual ad is about, because it's all these other famous ads you've seen and characters you've seen before, which struck me as kind of like the advertising version of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You're like, oh my God, there's this character from, whatever thing that I recognize from 20 years ago, and we've combined it with the Kool-Aid Man and the Cheeto guy. I guess it kind of got me thinking. On the one hand, it's very clear that for you guys, this is it helps because you're still trying to work on defining Instacart's brand, right? Like, this is a big brand play for you guys, and these are all very concretely defined brands that have decades and decades of brand associations. And the other, I also started to think, like, are we at like a point where there's ads are so referential, and you see this in Hollywood, are so referential, and people feel like everything is a reference to something from 20 years ago. Is it safer to go with something like that than to come up with something completely out of thin air? I'm thinking about like the famous Budweiser ads, like the "What's up, guys?" How do you think about, the concept of creating original ads now versus things that are like live in the world of references?
It's a great question. To me, the most kind of expected Super Bowl ad is pick your most, relevant celebrity from this year, write a script that maybe you paid attention to, maybe you didn't. Maybe there's some fun mashup of this celebrity and that celebrity, or it's like this celebrity and they're doing whatever trendy activity is happening this year, pickleball. Like, to me, that's actually the formula for Super Bowl ads, right? Like, I don't think you actually, like, we set out to break the formula. And we literally in the brief, we said no celebrity, because I felt like if we'd done a celebrity, it would have just been a crutch, right? Like, this is, I'm sure we'll see on Sunday, like, count the number of ads with and without celebrities, that is the playbook. The playbook is celebrity.
Are people getting sick of it? This is kind of a great cultural trend because I noticed that one of the other ads, maybe the Taco Bell ad, promises no famous people, and is there like a broader cultural trend that we're finally getting sick of celebrities everywhere?
I don't think people are getting sick of celebrities, but I think the risk is that it can just feel very flash in the pan, and I don't think you make like an enduringly memorable ad with the celebrity that just happens to be the kind of person of the moment right now. And I mean, of course, sometimes you do, but I think it's very easy to blend into the sea of all the other celebrity ads and have your own brand kind of get forgotten, right? It can become more about the celebrity than your brand. And so it is referential, but I think, frankly, that level of thought and then also the execution, the complexity of getting 9 different brands aligned on a concept is something that I think will break through because it's actually not what is being done in advertising. It may be being done in movies, but like there's not, I can't think of an ad I've seen with 9 different brands coming together in a way that, is actually telling a story and it's not just effectively a flyer.
Does seem preferable to Snoop playing pickleball.
Well, the other thing too here is that, you don't, in the case of this ad, the brands and the characters from those brands are the celebrities in some ways, right? Like they are the recognizable figures that you're excited to see show up. And you're like, once your brain kind of processes, oh, I'm seeing a mashup of all these different brands, you're like, who is going to show up next, type of thing. So I can kind of see that. The other question that I kind of have here is, what is we live in kind of this peak fragmentation moment where all of these, where the ad is immediately something that people are talking about, online, and it's meant to kind of travel. But I'm really curious, what's the share of views of people who are watching the ad during the actual Super Bowl versus on YouTube or on Instagram? And are you measuring the views on those as well to see if it's been successful or not?
Yeah, we started this campaign actually already a week and a half ago. So January 26th, the playoff game, we ran a teaser ad, and that really kicked off the campaign. And since then, and you hit on this before, this idea of the products or the mascots being the celebrities. Our whole concept for our before phase was about what we called the star treatment. So imagine if the Pillsbury Doughboy and the Kool-Aid Man were celebs in their own right, and what would that look like? So a lot of our social content is really about that. So there's one kind of fun behind the scenes, and it's like in the Doughboy's dressing room and the temperature is set to 350 degrees, or Jack on set, and Jack from Jack in the Box is upset that he hasn't been invited to be in the ad because we're now doing restaurant delivery through Uber Eats. So he comes to the set and he kind of like vandalizes the set, and it's like pretty funny. And so we really tried to have fun with creating this bigger social conversation. We engaged Demois, which is this kind of Hollywood column, to do like a spotting Isaiah Mustafa, Old Spice Man walking the wiener dogs. We had Doughboy, Kool-Aid Man, and the Green Giant like doing multiple appearances on the Today Show. Then they're kind of wandering around New York like as we speak, and gonna get spotted by some influencers, and hopefully that'll generate some interesting online conversation, like why is Kool-Aid Man strolling through Central Park? And so we really focused a lot on not just the spot, but like this entire content ecosystem that was unlocked by the fact that we had these mascots that, are a bit absurd. So on our socials and even on the partner brand socials, like there's just a lot of fun, what we're calling branter. Pillsbury actually made a little social video kind of celebrating Doughboy's big break. They're like, the littlest mascot gets his biggest break. And they just made that because they thought this was so funny. They wanted to just, amplify it and be a part of that conversation. And so we're absolutely tracking the impressions and the reach that we're getting through all of this kind of content in the lead up to the game. And then there's the game itself. You have, the main spot itself and all of the social conversation that will happen around that. And that, of course, we'll be monitoring. And then afterwards, of course, we're looking at, the total reach and really looking at what the exact question you asked, which is kind of what was the reach that we generated through our paid placements versus what was the earned and organic reach that we generated. And I really hope that the latter is bigger than the former, because that's really where you get the ROI on this whole thing. And that was the premise that we staked the business case on, is we're like, this won't just be efficient on a CPM basis, it actually like the impressions actually are going to be much, much bigger than, what we'll get from that sheer buy alone. So that is 100% the intent here.
You said at the top something that kind of stressed me out, which is that you feel you really basically staked your career on this.
Yeah.
I mean, what if it bombs?
Then that'll be the country will have spoken. What I will say is,
it's like the election.
Yeah, we did pre-release it. We released it on Thursday, and so far the reception has been really positive.
The early returns are positive.
All right, Laura's going to keep her job. Good.
I mean, I hope so. We'll see. I expect the unexpected. This is, obviously a year of a lot of unexpected things. So I am ready for anything. But no, I think this was one that we just all really believed in, and I hope that people will like it.
One more question about sort of the big picture of climate, which is just like if you look at sort of this ads a few years ago, there was a lot of kind of like I guess what the industry calls purpose, but like very kind of like high-minded social political content, and notoriously embodied by that Kylie Jenner with the Pepsi ad, but like, all sorts of stuff like that. And if you look at this Super Bowl ad, certainly this one included, they're like incredibly goofy and outside anything remotely like politics at a moment when like Max and I are spending most of our days like just like bouncing around really insane political stories every second. I'm curious if you think, I don't know, that like is this escapism, or people trying to get away from that climate? I'm curious because obviously this is an extremely goofy ad.
Yes, I think that there is escapism happening right now. And it's super interesting you brought this up, because when we first started to concept, one of the things we wanted to do initially, or we thought about, was should there be some higher purpose or some act of generosity at the core of this? And we wanted there to be. And so we started ideating in that way. But everything we did felt really insincere because, the premise of this thing is you just paid millions and millions of dollars for the spot. So anything that you might do is like, oh, we're going to go do this or that, felt just very manufactured.
Yeah, but do you think there's something, though, broader about like just where the culture is, where the ad industry is, that people are getting away from trying to blend politics and I mean, like, it just seems like,
yeah,
I don't know.
No, I think you have to be very mindful as a marketer in this environment that if you're not talking about something that's very core to your business, that it's kind of at your own risk, because, we know we are been delivering grocery for 12 years. We've delivered over 1 billion items of grocery. And like, I think anything that we can do that's around and adjacent to that, we're going to keep doing that. But like opining on measures beyond that has never really been our MO. And I'm in this moment pretty grateful for that, because I think it's hard, right? There's so much that I think can be expected of companies, that they can be everything to everyone. That's not possible right now. You can't make everyone happy with what you say. So you have to just really focus on, what do you do? When you deliver groceries, we can kind of make light of that and have fun with that, like we did the Super Bowl. And that can also be an essential service, as it was during COVID. But that's kind of why we have chosen to stay in this pretty focused and narrow lane, because if anyone challenges us on it, it's like, no, that's what we do. We're a grocery delivery company.
And is that sort of a disappointment? Because like for a while, corporate leaders were these kind of, important political cultural figures, or is it a relief because ultimately you want to be selling groceries and making great ads? Like, how do you feel about it?
I feel like these are corporations. Like, as you mentioned, I went to business school. Like, we all have a fiduciary responsibility as an operating officer in a company to maximize shareholder value. And I think anytime you're getting away from that, it does put you in jeopardy, right? Because you're not actually doing the thing that you set out to do. Now, if you are a B Corp, you should absolutely uphold whatever that secondary value is. And if you choose to work for a B Corp, then absolutely that should be core to your mission. And if you work, at a nonprofit, I'm on the board of UNICEF, like that's in that capacity, like those are issues I care really deeply about, but that's in that capacity versus this capacity where I've been hired to market a grocery delivery service, and that's what I'm going to do, right? And so I think each of us as private individuals should make choices about what we care about and should put our time and money behind those. But as, officers in a corporation, we should really stay focused on the task at hand.
Yeah, well, there's the vibe shift. Thank you for thanks for doing this, Laura. This is incredibly interesting.
Well, thank
Laura,
you for having me.
we will certainly be watching in the second quarter, around the second or third second ad break, and
First
the second
ad break.
first
second
ad break,
quarter.
second quarter, second ad. We'll be watching, and we'll be keeping you in our thoughts, as we know you've staked your reputation on this. But it seems like it's a fun ad. People are gonna like it.
Let's hope so. Well, thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Laura.
Are you nervous for Laura? Do you think this is going to be a success, or what do you think?
I mean, you see, CMOs notoriously have the shortest tenure in the C-suite. Like they're just getting fired constantly because whenever anything goes wrong, you fire the CMO. So I kind of like that she just was like, "All right, fire me, but give me $14 million. I should try that." But it's like actually a pretty good. Maybe she learned that in business school. That's like a pretty good tactic.
Yeah, I don't know if Justin's going to sign off on $14 million for one specific event. That's a pretty big bet. But I actually think it was really interesting, the way that she was puzzling through it, and I particularly thought the lack of celebrities and the idea that leaning too hard on celebrities is seen as kind of cheap and is seen as slightly lazy and maybe, distracting when you're trying to define your own brand. Like, I think a celebrity ad probably works for brands that are really well established and that need to kind of make things fresh. But for a company like Instacart, which is like just trying to introduce itself, it does make sense that they're lucky they can lean on their other ad partners.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like it is a situation where I think the culture moves so fast now. People copy each other so fast now that anything that is fresh very, very quickly seems tired. And I do think there's a certain kind of ad. I mean, I think like I mentioned Snoop Dogg, but I mean, I do think I read that he moves product like more than anybody else. You have him, do a spot for your fast food chain in Orange County and sales go up 20%. It's just very transactional and straightforward, but also really boring and repetitive. And you can't even quite remember which thing he's endorsing.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, there's a broader episode of this show to be done on Snoop Dogg's transformation from like.
Could we get him? He seems very accessible.
Absolutely. Well, I think he's got to play he seems to always be grinding and playing his own angles. So we'd have to figure out a good reason for him to be here. But it is certainly true. I was actually having a conversation with a friend recently about how Snoop Dogg's collaboration with Martha Stewart might have been one of the most brilliant things for his career, like of all time, and totally changed his trajectory, and like softened him in the eyes of all these people. So now he's like, my 60-something-year-old mother is, loves him and thinks he's great. And I'm like, when did that happen? Like, I don't think you let me listen to his music in like middle school. I don't know. But the most interesting thing to me, or one of the more interesting things to me, was this idea that I figured there would be some money changing hands, for, the Kool-Aid man is, because in some ways it's a Kool-Aid ad and in some ways it's an ad for Cheetos. But yeah, I was surprised to hear that, they're getting brand advertising for free in front of the largest audience. What did you make of that? Did you think that was surprising?
Well, I mean, what's interesting about Instagram, I think something people like don't totally notice about the universe around them at the moment is that there's this layer of advertising being sold as well as bought by these retailers. And it's always been true of supermarkets, right? Like, like Nestle would pay, Key Food to put their products a little more prominently in the physical store. But it's the fastest growing category of advertising in the world right now. Amazon is the dominant player, but Instacart's in it too. And just all of our digital experiences are being more and more determined. I mean, you see this in Spotify, for instance, by who's going to pay to put something in front of you. It sounds like they've actually, and it sounds like in that context, she's managed to turn this ad also into a new source of revenue where they're persuading these folks who are featured in their Super Bowl ad to then buy advertising on Instacart to amplify that, which is kind of genius. Though also as a consumer, don't love it. Like it's just, and this is really particularly true, I would say, of my experience on Amazon. I just literally have no idea why I'm seeing any. When I ordered like I left my razor in some other country and was ordering one online. I just have no idea why I was buying it from this shop versus that shop, and I assume it's because they're paying Amazon.
That's really interesting. And I mean, it also means too that Laura probably knows the being an ad seller herself in this case, knows exactly how much this is worth value-wise, right? Being someone who's both buying and selling, she knows exactly the value of an ad like this, and so it probably reduces the risk.
A little bit. But it's certainly, it's sort of a moment where you see the ad. I mean, it's just, you're taking advertising in both directions here, all directions.
Don't you think when it comes to something like Instacart, when it's groceries, do you mind being advertised? I personally don't find those ads to be particularly offensive to me because I'm just like, well, if I'm in the market for pretzels,
Totally.
I'm already going to buy them. So, I don't really mind that they're showing me a pretzel ad.
As long as I know it's an ad, I'm totally fine with it.
Yeah, you just think that that Amazon in particular doesn't do a good enough job like distinguishing.
I mean, maybe I'm a lazy consumer. It is the biggest. It's just maybe I'm sort of alert to. I've just seen like the Brian Weezer's reports and what a huge business it is for a lot of these companies now. You're just like, oh, like a lot of our consumption. I mean, Spotify is actually the one I've noticed it most on lately. Increasingly, they're kind of subtle, clearly labeled, but subtle ads saying, hey, you might like this song, being bought by the labels that are, going to gradually shape people's consumption.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I would say the only other thing that I did think at the end there, like, I do think that we are in a deep vibe shift in the economy. And it sounds like she was at Uber before. I don't think she's coming out of like the most sort of politicized parts of the ad industry, but like, I mean, I think she gave an extremely clear articulation of where every CEO, where every kind of like business leader is headed right now, which is, look, we sell groceries. We're interested in doing positive things around the sale of groceries, but we're just not going to come and weigh in on anything else because it's dangerous.
Well, in some ways, that's a return to normal, right? Because that's
totally.
always been the way that advertisers and marketers, they've always wanted to stay as far away as possible from any sort of controversy. It seems like only we lived through maybe like one of the only times that we can remember in which brands and companies thought it was advantageous to, maybe make them cast themselves as political in some sort of way.
Yeah, and maybe consumers or the media for a minute were like, what do the brands have to say about this important social cultural issue? I mean, there have been other moments in history, but this one crashed pretty hard.
And of course, also, it is a slight contrast from companies and brands that still feel like they can wade in because there's something to be gained there. Like the CMO of Tinder, who you guys talked to, they were not afraid to be political at all because that is, in some ways, they felt like their consumer base rewarded them for it.
Yeah, I feel like Melissa is the last woman standing on that particular island, but good luck to her.
Exactly. Well, that's it for us this week. Thank you for listening to Mixed Signals from Semaphore Media. Our show is produced by Shino Zaki with special thanks to Max Toomey, Britta Galanis, Chad Lewis, Rachel Oppenheim, Anna Pizzino, Garrett Wiley, Jules Zern, and Tori Kaur. Our engineer is Rick Kwan, and our theme music is by Billy Libby. Our public editor is the Jolly Green Giant, the Kool-Aid Man, one of the 9 characters who's featured in the Instacart's ad.
If you like Mixed Signals, please follow us wherever you get your podcasts and feel free to review us.
And if you still want more, you can sign up for Semaphore's media newsletter, which is out every Sunday night. This Sunday night, hopefully earlier, since it's the Super Bowl, and people will be watching the Instacart ad, among others.
Yeah, we got to get out ahead of that.
Yeah, that's true. We'll talk about that later.